There's an effort of the Center of Excellence for Data Science and AI to bring in credible voices and opinions for the benefit of the data science community. We have the privilege of having Pankaj Rai in the house today. I mean, that sounds like introducing, somebody. Chances are that you've already met or he's a part of your network. You may have interacted with him in the sidelines of many conferences that he regularly attends, or you may have run marathons with him, or you may have worked with him in the past. But if none of this is still true, let me introduce him. Pankaj Rai heads the strategic planning at Wells Fargo's Global Capability Center, GCC. He's responsible for creating a culture of 3 E's, and these 3 E's stand for effectiveness, efficiency, and experience. And this is a part of their shared services operations across India and Philippines. Pankaj brings in about 25 years, over 25 years of experience. He has worked in companies such as ICICI, he's worked in companies such as GE Capital, Standard Chartered, and as a director of Dell Global Analytics for 11 years, which is where I came to know him. He was instrumental in building the analytics practice. He has been actively engaged in diversity and inclusion initiatives, sustainability initiatives, and has also been engaged with various industry forums, including NASSCOM. From an education perspective, Pankaj has studied electrical engineering at IIT Delhi, and he has gone on to complete his MBA from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad. He's also a Six Sigma quality leader from GE. While at ICICI, Pankaj was selected to be one of the 12 bankers, for the British Council Chevening Fellowship Program that was administered at the prestigious London School of Economics. That was back in 1999. Pankaj's wife Ritu is an artist, and they have 2 daughters, Pragya and Parivi. Pankaj is also an avid marathon runner, and he occasionally dabbles in badminton. So one of the things that really fascinated me is the simplicity of his write-up of the resume. There's something that I would probably want to quiz him at a later point of time. But very quickly switching on to the topic on hand for today. As we had, put out in the creative or the mailer, we believe that a career is an individual's metaphorical journey through learning, work, and other aspects of life. And if you want to be successful in your career, it will not just be achieved by or through individual brilliance, but you will also need to make a range of smart career choices and take the right kind of paths. The other thing that has suddenly become a variable is the whole artificial intelligence displacing and replacing traditional career roles. And some of you guys have gone about asking more, from this perspective. There is a need to future-proof roles, and you need to pace the careers right and understand how to make those smart choices. So Pankaj in today's session will draw out of his own experience of 25 years, and he will provide insights on how successful careers are made, right? So first of all, Pankaj, welcome to this session. It's lovely to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Snehanshu. Great to be here and seeing a lot of participants in interesting surroundings, I must say, including mine.
Lovely. So, audience, we had asked you to send across your questions for this discussion. We have picked about 10 to 15 of them that seem to represent the aspirations of entry-level, mid-level, senior-level professionals. And I'm also hoping that a lot of students today will tune into this discussion, Pankaj, because I'm hoping that there will be a lot of takeaways for them in general, right? So I was telling this a while back. We've had an overwhelming response to the session, more than 400 registrations. Let us see how many of them get the time to actually participate. But we have picked up about 15 questions. Time permitting, we'll take some additional questions from the live audience. But we'll also take the opportunity of asking Pankaj which question did he like the most, right? So that is a little bit of a backdrop and setting. And with that in mind, let us get started. So Pankaj, one of the questions that we wanted to ask you, and that's coming in from one of our attendees, is how do you continue to be relevant to your organization in these dynamic times?
Right. I think very, very good question. I think relevance is critical because many a time we all get mired in many of the weeds and forget that end of the day, it's our relevance that counts. I think a high level answer really is that every organization that you are part of, you need to at a high level understand the goal of that organization, and then your role in that team that you might be a part of. So let's say when I was in the analytics team working with Dell, and Snehanshu, you were there. I think while we were doing analytics, we were part of Dell, and we all had to know what was Dell's purpose or what was Dell trying to do. So if Dell was a computer making company trying to sell computers efficiently, it was important for us to know that, and that would lead for us to do the analysis that is required to make that goal happen. So I think relevance really comes from the fact that you are able to contribute something that can translate into a real impact for the company to move it forward. So I would say that is a very single line answer. But I think the challenge that typically many of us face is when we get into a company, we are part of a department, a team, or whatever that might be, and we tend to sometimes ignore the larger purpose of that company, and therefore the opportunity to make a bigger impact than we can. And we tend to be very siloed in whatever we have been tasked to do. So my, this thing always is that don't get bogged down by the job description or what your manager or what your team is asking you to do. That is necessary, but probably not sufficient. That is probably necessary to do your job because that's what someone is telling you to do. But I think you have to connect to the bigger picture and add that extra zing, do those extra things, put that extra effort to either do the same job with a difference or do some other job which were technically not part of the job description. And that is, I think, the sure shot way to continue to have your relevance in wherever you are. Say, Hanshu, I think at this point in time, it will appear very, very high level, but that's what I can say to this question at this time.
And the essence of what you're saying becomes more and more relevant as you continue to collect years of experience, Pankaj, right? So I'll move on to the second question, which is around what will be the new normal for careers after this pandemic? Are we looking for a new normal? If so, what is that?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think, and all of you and every one of us is part of different WhatsApp group, different places that we are reading. So, what is the new normal for humanity? What is the new normal for US, China? What is the new normal for healthcare? What is the new normal for my company, country? So I that new normal has various, shapes that you might want to include. I do think that there are really high winds blowing at a very macro global level, where I think there was this whole thing about what I would say deglobal. Those winds were always blowing. We had sort of become very globalized of protectionism happening. I think what this pandemic will probably do is create more of that, but they may be what someone actually called out was a gated globalization, that there'll be people who will trust each other within the global this thing, and they will work with each other and things of that nature versus everyone being on their own, which is undoable. So that is a very macro trend. I think you can bring it down to every economy, every country for the next 2 years will be in a huge shrinkage, and that's a given. I think all projection that you see, we will be in a shrinkage mode. The shrinkage will be felt across different industries in different ways. The easiest way I was telling someone is to judge which industry is going and which is not, is to just look at your own consumption pattern. So I looked at my own consumption pattern on my credit card bill that came just now. I was just spending on bare essentials, on grocery. I was not going to the mall. I was not buying clothes. I was not traveling to meet my parents. I was not traveling on work, so staying in a hotel. So very clearly thing that I was not doing, which is hotel and aviation and travel and clothes shopping, are the ones which are suffering the most. And the other side, whatever I was consuming, the bare essential, which is grocery and especially online, is growing. The other thing most of us are consuming is really content. So, you basically fill your tummy and then you also have to fill your brain. You can't sit idle. And the brain is these days filled by Netflix and their, sisters and brothers. So I think all the bandwidth and the content are the people making all the money. So I think it's very simple to see where the growth is and where the contraction is. And some of these things will take a long while. I was talking to someone who said that they are expecting the airline traffic to return to where it was in 2019, probably 5 years from now. That is a long, long time. Most airlines may not survive that. And you can say the same thing for many industries where coming back to the same normal will take a long while. So I think the new normal, what I mean, will be very different from different people. It will depend on which country you are on. It will depend on the company that you are working for, the division within that company that you are part of. So if you are part of, let's say, any large IT services company servicing the airline industry, you know what your
Yeah.
future looks
Yeah.
like, or hotel for that
Yeah.
example. So I think one can just apply some of these commonsensical rules. We don't have to necessarily do a lot of research, and the answers are not far from where what your own assessment will lead you to.
Right, and in many ways, Pankaj, it leads back or ties back very well with the first question and the first answer that you gave, right? How do we continue to be relevant to your organization in these dynamic times, right? So this is a nice connection going back to the first question. Can I request the participants to go on mute and turn off their videos if that is possible? There's a little bit of feedback that we continue to get. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, the next section that I want to move to, Pankaj, is around job prospects. Now, there are some domain-specific questions, somewhat domain-specific. So let me go ahead and pose them any which ways. The first question around here is, what are the career opportunities in HR when AI is actually replacing a lot of traditional workforce? I think this is probably not just with with HR. It is happening in other roles also, in bits and pieces. For example, I was talking to somebody and they mentioned that a lot of project managers are feeling threatened, right, by the advent of AI and automation, etc. So, how do you answer this? How do you look at this? What kind of are they to be told that no, this no prospect sort of continues to exist in some of these traditional roles, or maybe you could still continue in these roles but do something different?
If I look at HR, frankly, the big trend that I see these days is that every function, and HR is a good example to take and describe this, is going to the two extremes. So, what was happening in the past was something in the middle. You were doing a lot of tasks and you were doing certain things in a very repetitive way. The strategic element to one side and the digital element on the other side, both are growing in every function that you pick up. Because
Right.
in most functions, we were very repetitive, task oriented, and all of that. And all the thing that all of us ended up doing was in that area. Usually, most functions or whatever we did not have a huge digital element,
Yeah.
analytics, data, apps, and all of that. They also did not have the other side, which is really high level strategic. That what is my do I need to do? Both for less. And I am seeing that in every function by function, industry by industry.
Sorry, Pankaj, just give us a quick moment. I think we lost you. We've accidentally muted you. We need to, Supriya, can you try and unmute Pankaj? It's been
I
done
think I'm
from us.
unmuted.
Okay, you're. Thank you so much.
Okay. So,
yeah, please continue.
I was just saying that in every activity, there was a general work that we were doing, which is actually task oriented, which is getting automated and getting redundant. And
Yeah.
the two extremes, whether it is strategy on one side and the digital on the other, are the ones gaining prominence. So you have to either become a strategist or a digitalist. And I mean, I'm not saying that's just two different things, but that is the extreme that is happening. So if you look at HR, and that's a great example, a lot of things that HR had traditionally done was very task oriented. You open recs and do this and all of that, and people are saying, why do I need a human being to do that? This can be automated. But as HR, can you be a strategist and tell me what role will people play? What kind of talent should I look like? What should my organization design be? What kind of layers and all of that? So really high-end strategy. Those questions in the past were never required to be answered very frequently.
Right.
Someone could have done it one time and it stayed that way for 10 years and you didn't need to do it. Now the strategy is evolving so rapidly that you need a real strategist who's agile and thinking of how to evolve. On the other side, there's someone who have to implement it. Should I have a lot of apps or should I have those ERP systems or should I just have those? So someone who's a deep technology to think, okay, if that is the strategy, then how do I translate that?
நான் பண்ணேன் அதே தான் கிளிக் பண்ணேன்.
Can I request everybody to place their phones on mute? Can I please request everybody to place their phones on mute? There's a lot of feedback coming in. We'll give an opportunity to ask questions towards the end of this discussion, but right now, this is causing a small bit of feedback and disturbance. Let me do this. Let me mute everybody, and then Pankaj, I'd request you to unmute yourself.
I think you or the host can mute everyone, and then I think maybe I can unmute myself.
I just did that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this should be much better. Yeah.
Yeah. So my main thing was that in every field, the two extremes will be required. One, the strategist, and the other, for the lack of a better word, the digitalist. Sometimes I have used the analogy of, are you a product manager or are you an engineering manager? The product is more customer oriented, engineering is more technology oriented. So I think, and people are different, you have a different bent of mind, you have a different skill set. So you have to be, I think, one or the other, not to say that you can't be an all-rounder if you can. But this is the trend that we see, that the need of the hour is deep strategy and deep digital. And you have to go deeper in each of those. You can't stay in the middle because that middle is getting eliminated.
Right. And then, I was reading somewhere, Pankaj, that the prevailing thought is that AI can optimize, but it cannot create. So if you have to largely segregate your tasks or the kind of job that you have into repetitive tasks, routine tasks, optimizable tasks, complex and creative, the repetitive, routine, and optimizable tasks or roles can largely still, be performed by artificial intelligence. The complex and the creative will probably be left behind. And that is where the skill sets would probably need to be developed.
Or the alternate way, that the other analogy that some people I have seen use is that it's like a Robocop analogy, that you are augmenting your ability with these exponential technology to enhance your own impact. So at an individual level, you can think of yourself as a Robocop. He's armed with a bunch of different things. So you're enhancing your impact. And I think if you want to believe Elon Musk, he's also trying to say the same thing. He'll put a electrode in your head and he'll enhance your intelligence to some higher level. So yeah, that's, I think, what people are saying.
Lovely. Now, AI obviously is a hot career choice. There are different roles within artificial intelligence, but the question that is coming is, what do you think are the job prospects for AI professionals after a decade?
Yeah. I think, at least in my mind, I believe that the taxonomy of jobs, I am in banking, I am in analytics, I am in AI, I am a marketing person, I am an HR person. I somehow think that they are limiting factors, because I think they are limiting your identity into being something, and therefore, you don't evolve and do many other things. So I think that people have to align their job or their connection to the purpose, and not so much to that identity of that job description, because those things are very variable. They were in the past, like I said, when it was a very stable world. You could do those things repetitively for a long time. You had a JD, you performed that JD, you got promoted because you did better than the next guy, and so on and so forth. That was the old waterfall world. This agile world, if everything is sort of evolving, how can you have a very static job description or a static way of thinking about it? So to me, I would, like I said, ask everyone wherever they are to think of themselves in that their domain. Like I said, either as a strategist or a digitalist, and try to enhance their thinking and their ability to impact in that frame, versus a very narrow frame that I am an HR BP, I am a operations manager, or I am so and so. I think that's a great place to start, because to get that job, you have to do something. But the moment you are in the job, use that as a bare minimum condition, and not as a be all and end all of defining what your role is and what you can do. Look at the larger company as a broader playing field, and try to contribute in much more broader ways, in whichever way you can, and don't get bound by the boundaries of the JD or the department or the role.
Super, super. I'll move on to the next question, again in the job prospects category. The question, Pankaj, is what is the position of data science in India these days? What is there in its future? Is it emerging? Is it well established? Will it die? So on and so forth.
Yeah, I think, long ago, these are, ways in which the industries have evolved, and there have been enablers which have helped the industry evolve. So long ago, 20 years ago, when I used to be in GE, I was a Six Sigma person once. So those days, Six Sigma or continuous improvement or process improvement was a relatively new trend in the services industry. It was always there in the manufacturing industry. People like Toyota had made a living out of it, and so on and so forth. So we all learned DMake, and some of you may not even have heard of it, but DMake used to be the methodology for improvement. It was quite a commonsensical methodology if you think about it, and it's like define, measure, analyze, improve, control. It was just common sense put into a framework, saying you define what it is, you measure it, you improve it, and you do it. Now the A within that is what I told people is the analytics. So now the analysis has become so difficult and so sophisticated that you actually created a field of analysts who now become data science and so on and so forth. But I think the purpose has remained. I mean, I would not today say continuous improvement, because I think we have moved away from continuous improvement to continuous reinvention, which is a more of an exponential change versus a linear change that continuous improvement was supposed to drive. So while the A was analytic, but if you change A to AI, then you are getting exponential change. So therefore, the continuous improvement refined itself into continuous reinvention. So to me, the purpose remains continuous reinvention or continuous improvement. The method to achieve that has changed. So I think you should not attach yourself to A or AI or whatever. You have to continue to attach yourself to that reinvention and how you can contribute to it. And my favorite example is that if you can solve the problem on a calculator or on mental math, you don't need an AI to sort of solve it and do it. I mean, that's more frugal, that's more simple. People can get it and all of that. So the purpose has to be the most important thing. The means to that end can continue to change, because the moment, I mean, you look at people who are in AI today, I look at a lot of them. Many of them actually started in Six Sigma. Some of them started in automation. Some of them started somewhere else. So I think people have all moved to this place because they think this is a great tool in their armory to enhance the invention, reinvention, reengineering that they can do in whatever they are doing. So I think these tools will come and go, but the purpose cannot be lost. I think you have to always remember that the impact is created in the business, in front of the customer, through a dollar impact. And as long as you are creating that impact, most people are not really concerned about how you created that impact. I mean, they will, pat you on the back if you used an AI model. But frankly, if you had created a bigger impact using a calculator, you might have gotten a bit bigger pat on your back.
Yeah. Okay, super. So the next one that is coming in is focusing on Industry 4.0 technologies. And the question is around which of the Industry 4.0 technologies, whether it is AI, IoT, robotics, blockchain, etc., can be focused on for better career prospects.
So I think first of all, to understand how things are changing. So like I said, the prior world was continuous improvement, linear. The current or the future world is exponential, continuous reinvention, right? Now, what is the difference between these two worlds? The first world was driven by, like I said, Six Sigma. You have a knife and you use that knife and you improve and you go better. Now what you need is a Swiss knife. What does a Swiss knife have? Multiple different knives of different shapes and sizes. So all these exponential technologies are like the Swiss knife, which are required for this new era of continuous reinvention, as I like to call it. So like I said, it was a single variable era. Continuous improvement is equal to Six Sigma. Continuous reinvention is equal to a Swiss knife for exponential technologies. Now the question is, you have to be the chef who has to figure out in what quantity and in what phasing each of these knives within the Swiss knives have to be utilized. So if you are on the factory floor and you are not thinking about robotics in the true robotic sense, not the digital robot, but the real robots that we have all learned, then there's something wrong. That, if you are going to automate a Toyota factory and you have no understanding of a physical robot, then how will you ever do that? But if you are doing it for a back office operation, then the technology that you need is automation anywhere type of technology, or a digital robot type of technology. So I think again, like I said, depending on where you are, the opportunity will be presenting itself, and you have to figure out what method you have to use to take that opportunity forward. So it will vary depending on, are you in manufacturing, are you in services, within that services, what is the digital maturity of that industry, that function that you are, what can you use? There can be some areas which are very backward. You might use just simple Excel automation and create a big impact. Great. There could be some other places where even the sophisticated AI engines are failing you. So like I said, end of the day, the goal is impact. Depends on where you are, and what you need is what you need to focus on. And today it is very hard if someone tells you, do this and you will have a good career. If someone tells you, go to this industry or take this function, whatever anyone is telling you is probably true for the next 3 to 5 years. It will change. So in the past, we used to say that pick up engineering or pick up, mechanical or pick up something and you'll be good. I don't think you can say that again. the only sure shot, antidote to obsolescence is really continuous learning. And you have to be always thinking about learning new skills and new things, because whatever you learn, you should assume it will get obsolete in 5 years. So you have to keep refueling yourself, because the change that is happening in your generation, in this current generation, is intra-generational. In the previous generation, your dad or my dad took one job, one education, it lasted them 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Today, whatever you take will last you 5 to 10 years. So this intra-generational change is the biggest change that has happened this year. And therefore, one education will not last you a lifetime. And one type of learning will never last you a lifetime. It is given. So in the past, some people sort of survived because they somehow chose the right profession, that thing never changed, and they retired. Today, irrespective of what you choose, you can't retire in that same thing. So therefore, that is a big change for this generation, and everyone will have to continue to learn. In the past, a few people had to learn because, let's say, basic manufacturing got eliminated and someone had to learn something, but many other people didn't have to learn anything. Today, everyone has to learn something.
Lovely, lovely. Why is data science so much in demand after all?
So I think this data, as you heard, is the new oil. So
no longer
we have found oil. yeah. And that was going to be my next part of the answer.
Okay.
Oil also does run out one day, right? So whatever is the new oil will become old oil, and the new oil will replace the old oil. So today, data is, it's very commonsensical to say that if we have data-based decision making, and something that we have all thought about, is obviously better than non-data-based and all of that. Not to say that gut feel is not important, but data does help take a better decision whenever we do anything. So I think that is the phase that we are in, that there is a data explosion. All of us have seen that. And people want people to figure out how to utilize the data and, bring that to some kind of a conclusion. But like you also said, and I also believe that all of the data is generated in the past. So it can only tell you so much about the future. It is the human ingenuity, intuition, aspiration, all those other things, which will sometimes create a future, which data can't tell you. So while I think it's great to have all that data, but that cannot be just that. There has to be something beyond that, that we all need to bring to the table to augment that data with our own intuition, aspiration, the software that we carry in our head, to make it meaningful, to make an impact.
Lovely. So with that, I'll move on to the next section, which is leadership. And leadership just has one question coming in. It's an interesting one. What are some of the indicative qualities to assess leadership fitment?
Yeah. I think this leadership is a much abused term, because it is always seen as someone with a position, someone with a lot of experience and gray hair and those types of things. Not to say that those things are not relevant. To me, the leader is someone who really controls himself, who's self-aware, who knows what he or she is doing. So to me, leadership is all about your own personality. Are you really, having the conviction in terms of what you need to do and what you need to contribute and so on and so forth? And once any individual has that conviction on what they need to do, there will always be people around them who will follow. When we all hear about this Gandhi's Dandi March, I'm told that he started alone, but he has such a strong conviction that by the time he ended, there were millions of people following him. So I think that's what we have seen around us, that there are people that we have followed when we have really believed that someone was really convinced and that cause was worth dying for. And I think, we don't have to die, but, I think there's at least living for, nothing else. So I do think that to me, a leader is someone who has a tremendous amount of self-belief and a cause that they are pursuing. And they don't have to worry about how many people report into them and how many of them are following to start with. I think if the cause is meaningful enough, I think there'll be enough people who will follow, and there'll be things that will get done.
And I sincerely hope that a lot of students and early starters are listening into this answer, because this is very, very different from some of the conventional definitions of leadership they would have heard so far, right? So much of it is about conviction, so much of it is about creating the right kind of focus and influencing people. The rest kind of follows, right? So very, very interesting perspective. Thanks, Pankaj, for sharing that. I will move on to a section which we call career guidance, and these questions are coming in from professionals. The first question around here is, how do you restart your career after a gap of few years? And we understand, these things keep happening due to various reasons. Sabbaticals happen, people do go on leave voluntarily, involuntarily. So how do they bounce back really?
Right. So there are a bunch of things that I have seen, at least in my experience. I think the one very organized way of restarting their career is these days present if you are a woman. Most companies that I know of, most reputed companies, have a specific program to cater to the need, because for a lot of women, maternity and some of these breaks are just natural. And I think large companies have figured out that you are losing out on a big pool of talent who,
Yeah.
for very genuine reasons, took a break. And therefore, every company that I know of has a program of that nature. So I would say, if you're a woman and you have a career break, there are programs available. You pursue that route, and that's a good thing to do. The other one, by the way, we are seeing the advent of is also for veterans who are coming out of the forces. A lot of companies have similar programs, and including our company, to hire veterans who again don't have any corporate experience. So to that extent, they are really freshers, but they have a great experience of managing people, doing a lot of things for the country, and so on. So I think that is a different one. But if you are a man for whom you took a break for some reason, there are no such programs. So I would think that the best place to start, I would say, is a past network that you have. Is the first place to start, that you have worked with someone or you have done something for someone, and that network could also be a secondary network. It could be someone that you know through someone, because many a time we know a friend's friend, or someone's connections and all of that. Beyond that, it becomes very diluted, and it's usually hard to do. So I would say the best place to start is saying, okay, who do I know? And they could be your friends, colleagues, mentors, bosses, whatever. And who do they know? So I think in those two sort of circles is probably the best place to start. And I would say that one should start somewhere, because many a time you will never get the best place to start. And I often get these questions saying, I'm getting this, but this is not really what I was looking for, or I could get better than that, and what do I do? And it's always a hard choice. But my preference and bias has always been towards action. And I have always said, hey, you know what? Instead of doing nothing and instead of just searching, if you have done enough of it, just latch on to it. You'll get some experience. You'll do something meaningful about it. And maybe if they probably hired you at a lower grade, 6 months down the line or something down the line, they might, figure out that you were worth more, and they will give you a bigger role. And if they haven't figured out, maybe someone else in the market will figure that out, and you can always do that. So that's been my sort of advice whenever I have encountered such situations.
Right. Moving down the list, what is more important as you progress in your career, depth versus breadth? Well, we've seen a couple of these questions come in. Is there a trade-off so much?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I mean, always the answer is never either or, but it is an and. Because both depth and breadth actually complement themselves. So I remember when I was initially coming into the job market, there was a lot of focus on being a general manager, that you need to know a lot of different things so that you can give broad direction and so on and so forth. And in my own career, there was a time then there was been a whole focus on specialization, that you have to be T-shaped, you have to have a depth in something. Unless you have a depth, the upper part of the T will fall down. You have a proper solid vertical part of the T as well. And now I think I'm again seeing the resurgence of that general manager or a translator, if you may, because a lot of people have become very deep domain experts, but there aren't enough number of people who can rally those expertise together and make meaningful sense and do something about it. So I think some of these things will ebb and flow. So one part of it is to look at what the market wants. I think the more important part of it is to say, what is it that you really enjoy doing? There are some people who enjoy breadth and some others who enjoy depth. It also changes with the stage of your career. Sometimes, you enjoy going into deep. At a later date, you might want to do this, and then you might want to do that again. So I think given that, like I said in the past, the career are going to be long, there won't be one strategy which survives. So I would say it should be a combination of breadth and depth periodically over a period of your career. Unless you are really a scientist who wants to invent things and be Einstein, and that's the depth you have, that's great. But usually normal people will probably have to alternate between the two, in my opinion.
Lovely. There's a question that is specifically for you in terms of what is the best career move you have made and how has it impacted you?
Yeah. So I think this whole career piece to me has, I never have had any specific goals for my career that, people do have goals that, I want to be at a certain designation, at a certain
बड़े
salary
होकर ये
level, in a
बनेंगे.
certain industry or any of those things. And then, exactly. Somehow I don't know why, but I never had any such ideas. So I always went with the flow. So all my career changes were, or job changes were that I was in a place doing well, and then there was something else which came along, and it appeared to be an interesting choice. And in all of those places, there was actually someone in the other company who knew me and said, you know what, based on what I see from this place, this will be good for you. And I have followed their advice, and I have had no regrets. So I would not say there was any one career move which was good, but the one that I always remember and call out was my move to Six Sigma, and this was in GE. And that was the only move which was forced upon me, which I didn't do on my own. And I have to say that that was probably the best move, because when I was in GE, I was a credit risk guy who was doing credit appraisal. And then Jack Welch used to say that unless you have done a black belt rotation, you will never grow up in this company.
Right.
So they actually said that people who are, based on your HR inputs and all of that, everyone who is beyond a certain, what should I say, rating level have to do this rotation. So I was plucked from an HR chart to say your next role will be a black belt role. And I said, what is this black belt? I don't even know what this is all about. But there was one or two other people, so there was some benefit in a crowd, and all of us said, "Chalo, okay, we are all in part of this big company, and we are all in it together." But I think that changed my worldview, and a lot of things I did later were much more broader than what I ever would have imagined in the past, because I always identified myself as a credit risk guy. I could not have done anything more because that was my identity. Six Sigma really broke that mold and told me that you can do anything, and that's what I ended up doing later on.
Okay, what is the future?
So sometimes you may not know, but what my main takeaway is that don't imagine that all the great things happen through our own choice. Sometimes some things forced upon you turn out to be better. So don't lose heart if you think something is not gone your way. And there's a very famous couplet from Amitabh Bachchan's father, Harivansh Rai Bachchan, where he said that "Man ka ho to acha, or man ka na ho to aur bhi acha," which says basically mean that if you if something goes as per your wishes, it is good, but if it goes against your wishes, it is even better. So in his great wisdom, he had said that. I think my Six Sigma experience is a great example of what Bachchan Saab said.
That validates that couplet. Lovely. Pankaj, on a slightly different note, a question that is coming in is around what is the future for non-coders? Does the future only belong to coders, people who can program and look at the black screen and keep typing away to glory?
Sorry, say that again. What is the future for?
Non-coders, people who don't code, programmers, non-programmers, basically.
Right. So I think I will refer back to my original thesis of strategist versus digitalist, product versus the manager versus engineering manager. So there is a room for both. But that is the other thing is that these things keep changing. I remember 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't remember whenever Jeff Immelt was still the CEO of GE, he had made that famous statement that anyone who gets hired in GE will have to be a coder. If you don't know how to code, you should not be hired in GE. And that is actually a very big statement to be made by the CEO of a multinational company like GE, not about Google, not about Amazon. Because the large parts of GE's businesses are actually manufacturing businesses. They've made aircraft engines, they do healthcare stuff and all of those things. So at that point in time, of course, he believed that software and some of these things will be most critical for the company. And that's what the statement was. So I do think that coding and these types of things is penetrating and will continue to penetrate every aspect of the business. So it is very critical because, like I said, if data and analytics are going to be inserted into every business that has been invented so far, there is a demand for all of those people, and that's there. But like I said, those are the people who are the engineering digital people. But there has to be a set of other people who have to be the product manager, closer to the customer, and so on and so forth, who have to think, what is it that we want? What is it that we want to create? And even the engineering and the data analysis people, if you talk to people today who are working in that area, are being told that you have to be a behavioral scientist. you can't make your decision just based on data, because in the real world, people are not rational beings. While whatever we might be told, if you look at marketing campaign, when we put pricing of high, medium, low, you are really nudging people to buy the medium part, which is what your best is. So there are a lot of behavioral science and EQ type of skills that are utilized in whatever we do. So I think coding is important, will remain important, but I don't think if you are not a coder, there's no role for you. You can complement that coder friend of yours with other skill sets, and together you can be quite successful, I think.
Lovely, lovely. The next question that I'd like to pick up from this list is around what skills are needed to be successful in data science and how to develop them.
Yeah, I think I'll add one more flavor. I think, a lot of people are focused on what they should learn and what will be relevant in the market. I think the world of the future, even current, actually belongs to collaboration and co-creation. So it doesn't matter what you have.
Yeah.
It matters in which wheel are you a cog of. So you have to find the right wheel where your cog quality will have the maximum impact, right? So if you are the only data scientist in a non-data science team, that's great. If you are the only non-data scientist in a total data scientist field, that's great as well. So I think you have to look at the larger picture of a team or a company or wherever you are a part of, on where would your unique skill set create the maximum value. So I think I would change the question to saying, what should I learn, to say, you learn, or you wait for you to learn, which you enjoy doing, you are good at all of that, and then find the right place where your skill set can create the maximum impact. So spend more time figuring out the place where you should go versus figuring out the best thing that you should learn, because there is no best thing today. Things will keep come and go. I think the best thing is that what you enjoy doing.
Okay. Last couple of questions really coming in more from a student's perspective. One of the questions that I see coming up here is, should we pursue an MBA right after graduation or after completing 1 year in the job that was a placement offer?
Yeah. So I think one has to look at what has the MBA offered so far and what will MBA do in the future. So the reason the MBA, and I am an MBA and I did MBA just after my engineering. And I do think that...
did you do it right after, or did you get some
right
work
after.
experience right after?
Yeah, no, right after. And I think doing it just right after, you don't necessarily understand too much, because a lot of MBA knowledge is all about real world, on how the companies function, how the world functions. And if you don't have that knowledge, your ability to understand and absorb and contribute goes down. So you only gather so much from that educational part. But like I said, all of these courses, whether MBA or otherwise, are not just about the technical education, but they are also about the peer group, the network, the software skill that you learn, being part of a team, delivering a project together, collaboration. So you do learn a lot of other things, but clearly the subject matter expertise and the other thing that you pick up is lower if you haven't worked before. But I think the reason people used to do or still continue to do MBAs very quickly is that there are investment banks and consulting firms, which are the top pay masters in the past, at least in the MBA schools. And they used to prefer MBAs, and actually fresh MBAs, not necessarily people with a lot of experience. So there was a lot of focus on quickly, finish your graduation, do an MBA, because an investment bank or a consulting firm will pick you up. In fact, many of them did not necessarily like people who had a lot of experience. They like, you come and train you and so on and so forth. Now, many technology companies and many of the masters out there, in the past, banking and consulting were the top pay masters. These days, tech companies have become large pay masters. And the tech companies are not necessarily favoring MBAs a lot. So I know a lot of people who are doing a great job in Amazon or Google or any of those types of companies, who are really good engineers and they love doing what they do. And they are getting paid much more than their MBA peers who were probably in the same class as them during their class. So to me, I think it depends on what you think you are good at. And that should drive this choice. So if you think you are, you enjoy your engineering job and you are, getting some good exposure, my preference would be for people to not do an MBA just after their graduation, unless they are fixated that they have to join a consulting company or an investment banking company, although I'm seeing that these days some of those companies are also hiring fresh graduates and allowing them to also grow into these bigger roles and so on. So like I said, I enjoyed the MBA experience. I think you will also enjoy that, but it is very expensive and you have to be conscious of the expense. I mean, I did it when it was quite cheap. Today, I worry about people taking a lot of loans and doing these expensive MBAs without necessarily a commensurate ROI and so on and so forth. So I would rather people do what they do in the US, work for a while, save some money, don't take a huge loan. It will be a great experience to be back into college, learning something new. And like I said, continuous learning anyway is the mantra. So why do all the learning in one go? Do it in capsules. Take a capsule now, take it another after 3-5 years, maybe do another course after some time.
Yeah, yeah. And today there's so much of a possibility. So many different formats coming in, right? There are plenty of opportunities to get enrolled into any of these programs, short term, medium term, long term, everything put together. Okay, the last two questions really. What would you suggest students on the importance of balancing between smart and hard work? One of the professors have written.
Yeah. So I think these days the competition is so immense that it is both. No? Some people are smart and hard both. So it will actually depend on, again, your expectation from yourself and where do you want to be. So if you are really driven and you want to achieve a lot, you can reasonably be sure that there are enough people out there who are both smart and doing hard work. So you have to be both. So it's very hard to say that, you can just be smart and not be, hard. Um, it will be hard for me to say to just be one and not the other. You got to have both. It will be very hard to survive with just one of them, because if you are just smart and not hard, some point in time it will appear that there is some hollowness over there which will be found out and people will not necessarily like it. If you are just hard and not thinking about how to do it, so I look at it as a horse-drawn carriage, or a mind and a body attached. And I think you need both the mind and the body to move forward. So you need both the smartness and the hardness together to work together.
Yeah, absolutely great. The final question, and I didn't necessarily know where to slot it in. It's a very unique question. How to make future of 50 years and above people fruitful and valid in this crisis? The senior people, what should they do to sort of keep their careers going? Possibly, that's what it is hinting at.
Right. So I think that's a very good question and a very topical question. And unless there are more questions coming, I will give the best question about to this question.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, one, I can relate to it because there are many people I know in that cohort. So there is a bias to choosing that. But the main thing, the way I see it is that, I mean, if you look at our consumption pattern, we used to consume a lot of material and hardware oriented things in the past. Today, most of the things that we consume are services. In general, it has been seen that to attain mastery in the development of those manufacturing things, it takes longer. So you can't be a expert in making automobiles in 5 years, but you can be an expert in AI in some area in 5 years. So whenever you move towards services, you can be a reasonably expert someone in a services industry faster than you would be in a manufacturing. I'm making some gross. I think people's careers in the past peaked at a much later date. People will become after year, they'll become department head after many years because the consumption pattern was driven by manufacturing. Today you can be a CEO at 26 because what you are creating does not necessarily require a lot of other things, and you can do all of those. So I think the conundrum facing all of us as a society is that when life expectancy was lower, the careers were longer. When the life expectancy is longer, the careers are shorter compared to we are today. So the gap between life expectancy and peaking has become much, much wider because of the double whammy that I explained to you. So therefore, I huge question facing all of us. And some of us, or rather many of us, are still in that old model of thinking that if someone who's older and more experienced may not be as energetic, may not be as smart in terms of generating ideas and being able to create impact. So we generally associate old age with lethargy and lack of ideas. And some of it could be true for some. But by the way, you can see some young people also, we can be quite lethargic and lacking ideas. Right? So I would say that there is a huge human capital which is sitting at a experience category, which the current mechanisms of the market are unable to leverage in full. So I think it is the inability of our current corporate structure, our current mechanisms to absorb them. We are still designed to hire a lot of people at junior level because that's how we have created companies. That's how we have created work. We have created pyramids. So the whole org design, whole machinery, so the whole job factory, if I may, has been created in a certain architecture which favors younger people. I think this whole factory also will have to be reinvented, but it won't reinvent very soon. But I do believe that this whole population which is out there will prove to people, and someone will come up with models to say, how do I re-architect this? How do I get some of these people in role where they can be productive and meaningful and doesn't disrupt anything? So I do think the biggest question facing our architecture of the job market today, and that architecture has to be re-architected for the digital age. And I'm hopeful that will happen. Now, I don't know whether everyone will benefit from that, but I'm quite hopeful that it is just a matter of time and some of those things will have to be found, because you'll have more people in that age group in most countries, and there will be no option but to re-architect and create opportunities over there.
Yeah, yeah. And then our whole discussions about India having the right kind of demographic dividend, and these kind of conversations often get sidestepped. They probably require a lot more focus and attention. So I think we have 8 more minutes to go, Pankaj, and we are in a position to take a couple of questions from the live audience right now. So audience, if you can just type in your questions, we could pick up 1 or 2. I think we have done phenomenally well relative to the time. We had a lot of questions coming in. You have done an amazing job, Pankaj, in managing everything in 52 minutes. Audience, if you can please type in your questions.
I will keep sharing with you while the people come up with the most often question that I am asked, and I can provide the answer to the common question. So I think a lot of people are looking for ready answers on what course should I do, what industry should I join, what job should I do, and all of that. I think no harm in asking this question. But like I said, I think no one has the right answer today. So I think people have to get used to not believing that their parent or their boss or someone else had the answers. So like I said, in the slow-moving world of the past, they actually had all the answers because it was a predictable world. But in an exponentially reinventing world, if you believe in what I'm saying, there is no way that anyone can have that answer, even if they think they have. So you can't believe it even if someone is telling you. I think that is the biggest mind shift that everyone today has to come up with, to say, actually, they don't have the answer. They have ideas, and I should respect their ideas, take their ideas, but I will have to find the answer. And asking a question and imagining to follow the answer will not be a good idea, in my opinion. So when people ask me a question and I give some answer, I said, first of all, I won't give you a direct answer. You have to figure out your answer. I can give you a way to think, but not the answer, because I don't know. I'm not you. I will not live your life. But that is very hard, because we have all been programmed to take the answer and work on it. In fact, my favorite other example is that our education system has rewarded us for answering questions. So if I were to write a maths exam paper, mathematics class today, I will say, tell me which are the 5 most important problems that you think are worth solving using math, and now solve them. So I will judge you on the quality of the 5 problems you chose. Half of the marks will be for that, and the other half will be for the quality of the solution. And over again, you will find that the former will gain more prominence. What is it that is worth solving? Because the solution set will keep getting automated. The moment you define the problem, the solution set is getting automated and more this thing. But who's going to define the problem? So I think it will be on us to keep defining problems. But we haven't trained people to define problems or ask questions. We have always given them saying, you got 100 marks. Great. But we never asked them, was that question even worth solving? Why did you even solve it? You should have left it. We are not programmed to do that. And I can look back and say that I solved a lot of useless problems, which I could have spent my time doing better. But that was the method in which we were all judged at that time. Today, I think if you are in the corporate world, you are an entrepreneur, you have a choice to choose the right problem, which is where the value is, and people are doing that.
How do you, so on that topic, Pankaj, how do you sort of assess whether or not you're cut out for entrepreneurship?
You're saying, what if someone is not cut out for entrepreneurship?
No, how do you assess whether one is made out to be an entrepreneur?
Nice. So I think this entrepreneur can be many different things. One is the entrepreneur saying that, I'll start a company, I'll go public and all of that. But I think entrepreneur to me actually is a mindset of a creator. That's someone who's curious, someone who's inventive, someone who's creative, who's changing the status quo, who's doing something. So to me, the entrepreneurial mindset is who's thinking beyond the obvious, thinking out of the box of both the question and the solve problems. And I think that's not hard. But if you talk about a real entrepreneur in the way it is defined today, which is someone who's running a business, then probably you have to look at the team that you have. So many times I am told that, hey, you know what, you have been in analytics for so long. Why don't you start an analytics company? And my answer for several years has been to say that, okay, if I look at the analytics business, if I were to start one, I will have to do some business development and sales. Once I get the deal, I will have to price it at the appropriate level. Then I will have to deliver it at that cost level, which is under the pricing that I have done. Then I will have to also go and collect the money after doing that, right? So if I look at these 4 tasks of business development, pricing, delivery, and collection, I have done only number 3. I have not done the first, second, and fourth ever, because I have always been a captive environment. I never sold, I never priced, I never collected. So if I were to ever create a business around this topic, and I think I knew delivery, although I have some doubts about that part also, but let's assume I know that that is one area that I am good at. I still need someone to partner with on the other 3 who can complement me, and then only I have some hope to do something. So there's no point in me going out and saying, okay, now I've been an analytics guy, I'll start a company. You have to look at what is that how will you make money? End of the day, an entrepreneur's current definition is you have to make money. And initially for yourself and later on for your investors. So you have to have all of those ideas within that corporate setup. And if you don't have it yourself, are you able to assemble a team together to create the company that you want to build?
Lovely, lovely. So Pankaj, that is just about the time that we have today. I think very, very thankful for you to have made time for this session. It was really, a very, very enriching session. I'm hoping that our audience who have tuned in are taking a lot back with them today. This was then the masterclass session for this time. Let me also inform that Pankaj is 2 times the fun when he's moderating, and on Friday morning, this Friday morning at 10 o'clock, he will be moderating a panel discussion for the Center of Excellence on the topic of will COVID-19 accelerate the adoption of AI for social good. I'd request you all to join in, and thanks a lot for joining into this session. So this is me signing off for the session. Pankaj, once again, thanks a lot for attending this for us.
Thank you, Himanshu, and thank you for joining in. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.